All right, let's get on to business here. Mark Mix, the president of the National Right to Work Committee. Mark, we didn't know if you're going to be able to make it today, so we've been saying somebody from Right to Work will be here, but we're glad it's you.
Well, Vic, I'm glad to be on with you, and I worry about you if you're getting off on the deep end at 1 a.m. watching documentaries about the Kennedys.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? This all started with just going down Twitter, and this guy, wait a minute, I'll get his name for you, William Cooper, who worked for the CIA and had all these documents with all this conspiracy stuff, and he mysteriously died in some crazy car accident, right? And I'm like, oh, God. So I went into the thread, and I found all these documentaries I started watching, and you have no idea. Ken will vouch for me. I'm just a tiny bit obsessive. Just a little obsessive.
Ken, we may need an intervention here.
I agree with you, Mark.
All right, let's get down to business here, Mark Mix. Great to have you, by the way. There's something that the union bosses selling out their members on the Manchin-Schumer tax-raising bill. This was the topic that got me interested in Right to Work, because it was somebody who was a union worker, pays their union dues, and then it's up to the union leaders on how that money is spent, and that union worker really has no say in the matter. And this is why I got hooked on Right to Work. So tell us about the union bosses selling out the rank and file.
Well, not only did they sell out the rank and file, the Democrat majority sold out the taxpayers of the United States. This is a $739 billion bill that's 755 pages. Vic, we're spending almost $1 billion per page in legislation now. So, we need to shorten the length of these bills. But no, here's what's happening. I mean, they're standing up for all of this investment, this subsidization of so-called climate change and energy policies, that if you're in the energy business right now, and your union officials are using money to support the president, and the top bosses here in Washington are supporting a bill that basically takes money from taxpayers and subsidizes a market that's not yet mature enough to make itself work on its own. And you're working on the Keystone Pipeline, for example, as an operating engineer. I mean, you're on the unemployment line now if you're in the oil and gas development and exploration business, because you can't do that on federal lands, and Alaska got shut down. And so from an energy policy standpoint, this stuff is just consistent where union bosses have been. And the one thing they're doing here in this so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which doesn't reduce inflation, according to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, it'll actually raise inflation through 2024. These people are, unbiased independents. But so when you add, 10, 20, 30% to all federal construction jobs, that's inflationary. That eliminates support for individual contractors, about 86% of construction workers in the country that are not part of the union. And union officials go blithely ahead with this climate plan that really, when you look at it, is going to hurt those workers that they claim to represent right here in the United States.
There was one phrase that I got sick of hearing from Joe Biden when he was campaigning, and that was the phrase, good-paying union jobs, right? Mm-hmm. How many times did he say that on the campaign? And then the first thing he does is screw those union jobs when he shut down the XL pipeline.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
How does he get away with it, Mark?
Yeah, well, because what we have to do is translate what that means. He's not talking about rank-and-file workers. This lunch bucket Joe is not a lunch bucket Joe. He's not even from Scranton, Pennsylvania, if you look at the history of it. But the bottom line is this. He is empowering union officials to collect more money out of taxpayers' pockets, and that's exactly what this bill does. I mean, it increases all construction costs that have any federal money in it by 10, 20, 30% by having a union wage scale. It basically increases, union power when it comes to the automotive industry for the electric cars. I mean, in order to get the full rebate and get taxpayers to subsidize your purchase of an electric vehicle, it has to be made by a union manufacturer. And frankly, the biggest electric car manufacturer in the country, Tesla, is non-union. And, they just seem to do this to empower union officials, which ends up, Vic, meaning more money for union bosses and their treasuries, which, guess what? You and Ken probably don't know this, but they spend a boatload on politics.
Of course they do.
Oh, yeah.
Of course they do.
I knew you knew that.
I knew that. I know who Jimmy Hoffa is.
I apologize.
So, do you have a pen on you? Do you have a pen and a piece of paper on you?
I do. Yep.
I want you to write something down for me. Would you do that?
Okay.
Write these letters.
Yep.
E,
mm-hmm.
T, S, T, O, I, T.
T.
Read that word for me.
Etisotoit.
Etisotoit. Okay. It's an anagram. It's a acronym for everything they say. The opposite is true. Okay. That's it. That's an acronym we made up on this show, and it sounds crazy, and it sounds elementary, and it sounds stupid. But if you hear Joe Biden or anybody else on the left say something, you stop short and you filter it through the Etztoit lens, and you realize that everything they say, the opposite is true. It wasn't Trump who colluded with the Russians. It was Hillary who colluded with the Russians, right? Everything they say, the opposite is true. And that's what this bill is.
And Mark, another thing is if you ever get on Twitter, it's an easy thing to post with the hashtag #Etztoit. So it covers everything.
Yeah, indeed. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think you look at the debate around this bill and they talk about it, they call it the Inflation Reduction Act when $369 billion of it, more than 50% of it, is designed to basically increase government spending and subsidize industries that are not mature. Etztoit. There you go. I'm going to get this before we're done here. You know, it was Senator Kennedy from Louisiana who this is a quote, he said, special kind of stupid to raise taxes in a recession. And that's what this bill does. It raises taxes.
Yeah.
And so he understands your little acronym there for sure.
Maybe we should get him on, Ken.
Yeah.
You should.
I'll tell you what, I would never insult the senator to compare myself to Senator Kennedy because he is, you know, the morning show here calls him a national treasure, and that's what he is. In my state, gas is so expensive, it'd be cheaper to buy cocaine and just run everywhere.
Yeah, he had one today that said something about Louisianians. He used that Louisianians is how he said it are getting really good at doing worse or something like that.
That's exactly what he says.
I'm paraphrasing, but he's right, and that's what this is about. And you know, unfortunately, union officials and get with Joe Biden's pen and his executive pen and the power of a Democrat majority and Kamala Harris breaking a tie here, they're increasing the cost for taxpayers. They're hurting rank and file union members, and they're subsidizing these folks inside the Beltway up here in Washington, D.C., so they can be more powerful politically because they know the American people, like the lady at the grocery store. I mean, Vic, you're probably taller than I am. I can't really help anyone get anything out of the tax sale.
I am a little tall, yeah.
But when you hear someone like that in an anecdotal conversation saying, you know, not with this administration, hopefully the American people understand that, and hopefully it will manifest itself as we get closer to November.
And we feel like we're not alone, Mark. We're talking to Mark Mix, the president of the National Right to Work Committee. Now, this bill, this act, whatever you want to call it, what does hiring more IRS agents have to do with reducing inflation? Can you make that make sense to me?
Well, that's they want to do it to reduce inflation. What is your acronym again?
Etztoit.
Okay.
Etztoit.
Yeah, Etztoit. I got it. Okay, Etztoit. Well, this is another Etztoit example because basically by increasing the number of IRS agents beyond like border protectors or whatever, they're going to basically be doing more audits. And you know, it was interesting. There was an amendment by Senator Crapo from Idaho who said, okay, if you're going to have these new agents, because you're not raising taxes on anyone making over $400,000, nobody making under $400,000 can be audited by the IRS. Well, unfortunately, that amendment failed on a party line vote. So you know what they're up to, Vic. They're going to increase their power over the American taxpayer.
Right.
They're going to be in our living rooms, and they're going to be in rank and file union members' living rooms for sure, just like anybody else. So. You know, look, I guess it was the senator from Maryland up here that said something like Senator Cardin said, well, you know, that classic response, well, if you pay your taxes, you have nothing to worry about, right? Well, right. I think government action over the course of many, many, many years proves differently.
After this is done, the IRS is going to be up our ass, period. All right, let's talk about coal miners who, remember when Hillary Clinton was running for president, she said she's going to shut down all the coal mines. The coal miners are like, what? That's my job, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one of those sectors that is going to be dramatically impacted by this as they move away, you know, as we move away from reliable energy sources that we have in a surplus, particularly in coal. I mean, I forget what the numbers of export of coal is to other countries that have realized they've tried the sustainable energy thing in the near term, and they're finding that they're worried about heating their homes in the UK, coming in Germany this winter, and so they're going back to coal. We're actually exporting coal, but are we going to get to use it here? I mean, when Senator Schumer says that they saved the world yesterday by this vote, I mean, what is China doing about our environmental policy? What is India doing about our environmental policy? What are other manufacturers manufacturers across the world doing about our environmental policy? Nothing. But what we're doing is taking money out of taxpayers' pockets to subsidize a program that's untested and to punish the very workers here, union members, whose money is being used to elect these politicians, unfortunately, putting them on the unemployment line. It doesn't make any sense at all.
You know, Mark, I'm a huge fan of editorial cartoons because I think that's an art that I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And my favorite is A.F. Branco. And he had one a couple of days ago. And I'll have to tell you piece by piece, okay? You got Pete Buttigieg, who, by the way, he drew to look like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine.
Yep.
He's holding a sign that says Save the Planet. And he says, buy an EV. And there's an electric car. And then there's a charger that's connected to the electric car. And then the actual wire that goes from the electric charger to the coal mine. Because coal is what's actually making the electric. Right? So this is why they don't know anything at all. But A.F. Branco just nailed it all in one cartoon.
Yeah, we actually use him. We use Tony for cartoons for our stuff because he is just, I mean, I don't know, Vic, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how you do it, how you and Ken can be on the air for 3 hours a day. I guess you probably need more time, but it's, he is really good at reducing the basic core message to a one frame, one still cartoon. And it is important. It's unfortunate that that's kind of the way we can communicate now. I wish we could be more informed and more energized about what's happening here. When the Washington Times the Washington Post and the New York Times run headlines saying, the world has been saved because we're spending $739 billion in a 755-page bill that no one read until the very end, I suspect, or not even, maybe we're reading it now. It goes over to the House. But we hope that the increase in, Jefferson said that the only way we can save our form of government is to have educated and informed people. And you're doing part of that, Ken, Vic. I appreciate that. But when we just read the headlines or we reduce ourselves to really simple explanations of things, that's when we start to get in trouble, and we are in a whole host of trouble. To call this the Inflation Reduction Act is just a lie.
Exactly.
It's a lie.
It
doesn't reduce anything.
It's Etztoit.
Yeah.
Right.
It's Etztoit. That's right. I'm going to get it right.
Don't forget Etztoit. So the only thing that bugged me out of everything you said right there was you and A.F. Branco on first name basis. Me and Tony. Is that really it? We call him Mr. Branco.
Yeah, we email back and forth.
My
when he does a cartoon, if you want to introduce, I'll introduce you to him, Vic.
You're a show-off.
He's jealous because he loves.
I'm so jealous. Mark Mix, president of the Right to Work Commission. Tell us more about the commission. How can we find it on the internet and stuff like that, Mark? In about 30 seconds.
You can find us. Yeah, nrtwc.org, nrtwc.org. We'll get you to the committee's website. You can find about legislation we're tracking both in Missouri and across the country. nrtw.org is our legal defense foundation. You can find out about your rights in your workplace vis-a-vis forced unionism.
Fantastic. Etztoit, don't forget it.
Etztoit, thank you.
You got it. Mark Mix, we'll talk again soon, I hope.